Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Ever since he came to power in Turkey, Recep Erdogan has been turning his country into a hardline Islamic nation. And it's showing a growing hostility towards Israel, including a call for an Islamic army against the Jewish state.
Analysts say that Turkey is no friend of the United States as it holds an American pastor in prison. Dale Hurd brings us the story.
The man who fashions himself as the new sultan of a revived Ottoman Empire has big dreams, and one of them could well be to build an Islamic army against the state of Israel. A Turkish newspaper closely allied with President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his ruling party published an article in December entitled "A Call for Urgent Action." The Middle East Media Research Institute reports it's the brainchild of one of Erdogan's closest advisors. It looks like a blueprint for an Islamic military action against Israel. It calls on the 57 Muslim nations of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC, to launch a joint military operation against Israel. Such an army would be mammoth. The OIC nations together make up more than 1.5 billion people. The plan calls for staging areas near Israel's border, from which an initial force of 250,000 soldiers would attack Israel. But is it a real threat? Former Turkish parliament member Aykan Erdemir told us he's skeptical.
I would say this piece has more to do with domestic politics than with foreign policy. Erdogan is a very complex politician, and when it comes to Israel, he compartmentalizes. On the one hand, Israel is often at the top of his targets. But at the same time, Erdogan also manages to continue bilateral relations of trade and cooperation.
After the Trump administration's official recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, Erdogan turned up the anti-Israel rhetoric, calling Israel a state of occupation and terrorism. He's also turned on an old NATO ally, the United States, especially over U.S. support for the Kurds, warning the Americans could get, quote, the Ottoman slap.
Erdogan continues to make threats against U.S., accusing U.S. to be kind of the mastermind of a global conspiracy alongside Jews to undermine Turkey.
Turkey continues to hold American missionary pastor Andrew Brunson on charges he was a mastermind in the 2016 coup attempt, a claim the American Center for Law and Justice, which is assisting Brunson, has branded ridiculous. Erdemir agrees.
We argue that Pastor Brunson is basically a hostage, and Erdogan uses him as a pawn.
Erdogan's anti-U.S. and anti-Israel campaigns have worked. Most Turkish citizens now believe the U.S. is the #1 threat to Turkey, just as an overwhelming majority are anti-Semitic and anti-Israel. Whether the plan for a Muslim army to move against Israel is a serious threat or not, the fact there are voices calling for such action is alarming. The fact that it comes from persons close to Erdogan, even more alarming. And those voices in the Islamic world are not likely to go away. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Looks like Israel has yet another enemy. We're actually gotten used to this coming out of Iran, where they're talking actively of wiping Israel off the map. They're on a quest to acquire nuclear weapons. They're trying to create a land bridge from Iran through Iraq, through Syria, through southern Lebanon, directly so that they can invade Israel. And now we have another player, Turkey, arising, saying, we want to restore the Ottoman Empire. We want to restore an Islamic caliphate. We want to wipe Israel off the map. Let's get a huge army together and ally ourselves and march on Israel. Well, you look at the Bible, you look at Ezekiel chapter 38, it talks about things like this. When Israel is at peace, well, that's exactly the time when its neighbors will rise up to strike. And lots of biblical scholars say the Gog and Magog listed in that chapter is not Russia, it's Turkey. Well, in other news, the death toll is rising after the tragic bridge collapse in Florida. Mark Martin has that story.
That's right, Gordon. At least 6 people were reported dead and 10 more injured after the bridge collapsed on a busy highway in the Miami area yesterday, and the casualty toll could go higher. Crews are working tirelessly to dig through the rubble, and as Jenna Browder reports, what was a rescue mission is now a search and recovery effort.
Oh my God, there's 2 cars under there.
The search is on as crews continue to work to get anyone still trapped underneath massive slabs of steel and concrete.
There's blood everywhere.
A nearly 1,000-ton pedestrian bridge connecting the city of Sweetwater to Florida International University collapsed Thursday on this busy highway, crushing at least 8 vehicles.
This bridge was about goodness, not sadness. Now we're feeling immense sadness.
The bridge was considered an engineering feat, the school posting this video of it going up just last weekend. It was built with a faster construction method that was supposed to cut risks to workers and pedestrians, but experts say the method also made it possible for the bridge to fall. Authorities say they were doing a stress test on the bridge Thursday morning. Senator Marco Rubio tweeting that the collapse happened when the cables were being tightened.
Part of this project is federal funding. On the families of those who have been hurt and who lost their lives deserve to know what went wrong.
The National Transportation Safety Board is on the ground conducting an investigation, trying to determine if the collapse was caused by a design error or faulty construction. The main companies behind the project have faced questions about their work in the past. Fig Bridge Engineers was fined in 2012 when part of a 90-ton bridge collapsed in Virginia. And records show Manila Construction Management was accused of substandard work in a lawsuit filed earlier this month.
If anybody's done anything wrong, we'll hold them accountable.
Jenna Browder, CBN News.
The U.S. is coming down hard on Russia, imposing sanctions on Russian citizens and entities for election meddling and cyber attacks. The Trump administration also blamed the Russian government for hacking into the U.S. power grid. And the president is supporting British Prime Minister Theresa May, who's blamed Russia for poisoning a former spy and his daughter earlier this month.
It looks like it. I spoke with the Prime Minister, and we are in deep discussions. A very sad situation. It certainly looks like the Russians were behind it.
The European Union also holds Russia responsible for the poisoning. More cabinet changes could be coming in the Trump White House. The president is reportedly looking to replace his national security advisor, General H.R. McMaster. But it's unclear when that move will happen. The Wall Street Journal reports Trump doesn't have a replacement candidate yet and likely won't push McMaster to leave until he does. White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders tweeted last night, contrary to reports, there are no changes at the National Security Council. The Senate could soon pass a bill designed to pressure the Palestinian Authority to stop giving money to terrorists and their families, including U.S. taxpayer dollars. The measure is known as the Taylor Force Act, named after an Army veteran who was stabbed to death in a terrorist attack in Tel Aviv 2 years ago. The House already passed the measure, but some senators disagree about parts of the bill, including how much money should be preserved for humanitarian aid. It's possible the bill won't be passed as a standalone measure. Instead, it will be part of an overall spending bill next week. Either way, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told CBN News this week, "We're very supportive of the Taylor Force Act, and I hope we'll be able to enact that into law one way or the other in the very near future." Let's send it back to Gordon and Wendy.
Well, I hope we pass this as soon as possible. It's been on the Senate calendar for over 2 months now, and we delivered 25,000 petition signatures right before Christmas to the Senate, urging them to pass this Taylor Force Act. We've got to get this thing moving. Here's the problem. The Palestinian Authority takes U.S. taxpayer money and uses it to incentivize terrorism. It's called pay to slay. And Palestinians get rewarded financially, they and their families, based on the severity of the attack against Israelis. I'm outraged over this, that my tax dollars would actually go to fund terrorism. And it doesn't seem to I just don't understand why the U.S. Senate wouldn't be outraged by it and to say, well, we need to have protections for humanitarian aid. Well, the Palestinian Authority needs to understand we're not going to support them in terrorism. And the sooner we take a stand, this is just flat evil. And let's stop it. If you want to get involved, we have a petition for you. All you have to do is go to cbnnews.com, or you can call us, 1-800-700-7000. When you sign the petition, you can get a window clean where you can let other people know, let's stop our tax dollars going to terrorism. Let's end pay to slay. There's a hashtag for you. Let's get this out on social media. Let's put pressure on the U.S. Senate. And I urge you today, call your senators. You'll need to make 2 calls. We've got a phone number for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call 202-224-3121. That is the Capitol switchboard. Ask for your senators by name. You'll have to make 2 calls. We want you to call both your senators and say, let's get the Taylor Force Act on the floor. Let's get it for an up and down vote. Let's get this on the record. Do you support my tax dollars going to terrorism? Let's end this, and let's end this now.